Aditi, do you think the Browns defense has improved a little bit the last few weeks?
Are you asking me? Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that it has actually gotten better
Yeah,
the
these guys
last
are
few
lost
weeks.
over here.
No, I
I
think it
mean,
has too. They were so
healthier.
bad at one point this season. There's nowhere to go but up.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying
Well,
it's improved.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but you know what? I had Ike Taylor on my radio show here in Pittsburgh yesterday, and Ike Taylor, as you remember, played for the Steelers for a long time. He won multiple rings. He was on multiple number one defenses, and he said the key to that defense, or all of those defenses, was 6 o'clock. And I've never heard it explained this way, but it was essentially think of a clock where you want the 12 and the 6, and you're going straight down the middle. And he was thinking about those defenses, and the defensive tackles were impenetrable. The middle linebackers were you're so able to rely on them. And then you think about the back end, the safeties. So let's take that to the Browns right now. Defensive tackle has been the biggest question mark since training camp. That's where you were young and you were hoping that someone would overachieve.
Yeah, the Browns clock goes from 11 to 1. There is no 12 on the clock.
Zero.
No, but that's
Exactly.
that's,
and then you
that's
go
a
to
great
middle
point.
linebacker. Look at what's happened at inside linebacker, right? And losing Anthony Walker was huge. Then you go down to, again, the middle. I mean, it's sort of like if the guts of your defense is hurt or not available even before the season starts, not there, then that's pretty tough. And then, of course, in and out of the secondary, health issues. I think that the group is healthier or has gotten healthier. And I guess things have been simplified. We spent so much of camp talking about how they can go to another level because there were so many people that were back. There was so much comfort and familiarity. And then you hear Joe Woods, defensive coordinator Joe Woods, saying, well, no, now we've got to just simplify things and dial it back and try to do less and do whatever it is that we're doing better. I mean, I don't know. You were talking about the Ravens before you came to me, and I was just really quickly checking because those last 6 games, they finished 0-6, and I can't remember if I was at 4 of those games or I just lost it. But I was at the Steelers game when they lost by 3. I was at the Rams game when they lost by 1 and dominated the whole game until the very end. I was at the Cincinnati game, which was the only blowout, and that was when John Johnson started basically. I don't even know if he'd had 10 days with the team. He had a week with the team. The week before that, they lost by 1 point. The week before that, they lost by 2. And the week before that, they lost by 1. And those were all Tyler Huntley games. So even though Tyler Huntley wasn't necessarily generating the wins that Mikey remembers, he was keeping the Ravens in those games. Yes. And almost every single one of those games came down to the last 2 minutes, to closing, to finishing, which we all know is sort of the toughest thing to do in the National Football League. You think about the way the Ravens can run the ball and the way the Ravens did run the ball or have run the ball on the Browns, that's a bit worrisome. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here and saying, oh, well, it's not Lamar Jackson, ho-hum.
Well, not ho-hum, but, I mean, Lamar Jackson is a lot better than Tyler Huntley, so
Of
you have
course,
a better chance to win.
Sure, of course, but I also think that a situation like this, how many teams have you seen when they're facing an undefeated opponent, when they're facing a division leader, they bring their A game, and when they're facing a backup, all of a sudden they look a little bit wishy-washy. So if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'm in that room and saying, I don't care if it's Anthony Brown, I don't care if it's Tyler Huntley, I don't care if it's Lamar Jackson. This is it. Like, bring the best game that you have. And I also think that the offense has something. Deshaun Watson is still trying to get fully, completely acclimated. There are still things to play for here.
Aditi, let me ask you this question. Bull, can you assist me on this?
Please.
What does this really mean? He had a.
You want me to read that quote, that comment?
I'm trying to figure out what this quote means. We're baffled. Maybe
so
you
listen
can
to this,
shed some light on this.
So this was a tweet from Scott Petrak, who he covers the Browns.
Of course.
He said they were talking with passing game coordinator, DB coach Jeff Howard. He says Jeff Howard acknowledged it was a tough adjustment versus the Bengals when T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd left early. Weren't sure if they would come back, had planned to face all 3 wide receivers, not just Chase. So in other words, it seems like he's saying things got harder, that the Bengals' second and third best receivers got hurt for just guys, which to us makes no sense and sounds like a pretty embarrassing statement. Are we reading it wrong?
So the first part, the acknowledge it was tough adjustment, might be Scott being nice, saying clearly it was a tough adjustment and Jeff Howard acknowledged it. Meaning like they didn't do a good job. It was an ugly, it was rough, it was tough. Perhaps he's saying it that way. But the second part, I don't get at all. I mean, if you suddenly are only facing Chase and not Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, you should be doing jumping jacks on the side.
Exactly.
That's what we thought.
Like, I mean, I don't get that one. I'm sorry. That's probably a better question for Scott, who was there and I wasn't.
Yeah, because there might be some of that lost in translation.
By the way, guys, can I just go backwards? On Tuesday, when you were asking me about Jim Donovan, and I was saying what Jim Donovan was saying about the team, and I said initially, well, I'm not really sure, but then I said, look, he's there every day. We have to give him more respect for that insight right there than you can in asking me. I mean, he knows way more than I do. And so trust him in saying that. I did. There were quite a few people that were like, why are you just being a contrarian? And I was like, well, I'm thinking aloud as I'm talking.
Don't listen to those people.
Yeah,
they're freaking idiots.
Tune that out.
I don't want to parse Scott's words. We should ask Scott what
exactly
happened.
I think that's a fair point. Some of that, and I didn't think of that, but Aditi, you're right. Sometimes when a reporter asks a question and the subject agrees with it, I've seen reporter then try to put that as the initial thought in the the subject's mind. We don't know that that's the case. He might have, like you said, been agreeing with, and I don't know that this is the case. Scott's very good at his job.
Yeah, it's not in quotes.
I have seen that happen many times where a reporter offers up a premise and the subject, trying to be nice and agreeable, might say, yeah, and then all of a sudden that thought becomes his original thought. So we do have to be careful on that.
Or, and it may not even be to be nice. It could be just the truth. Like, acknowledges that was some ugly play, acknowledges that there were way too many, there was a lot of gap in security, acknowledges, it could be anything like that. This is what's so hard about Twitter, right? Like, it's very hard to know what the entire context, what the entire conversation was, where it all went. So I'd rather just, I don't know. Disappointing all around. Let's just acknowledge that.
The other thing that's possible, Aditi, is when you're game planning for a team that has 3 very good receivers and you're allocating your resources as to what you're going to do to stop them, I can see how perhaps it would be a bit of an adjustment on the fly to now say we're not going to equally distribute those resources to stop 3 people. We need to roll help over to the 1, but still, that should be something that these teams can do on the snap of fingers.
Come on, Jay, again, like, this is the National Football League. This happens constantly. Players go out all the time. Being able to adjust on the fly is where the magic is.
That's exactly right.
You have to be able to respond. You have to be, and in some ways, the best defenses tell you that they're dictating the play. We don't care what happens. We want to force you into playing the way we want you to play.
Yeah, we don't have that kind of defense.
Yeah, I think
it's a bad look.
It's
hard to disagree with that.
I got the quote. So Scott Petrak tweeted again. And this time he put in quotes exactly what he said.
Okay.
This is what, again, Jeff Howard, the passing game coordinator, DB coach. Quote, we were planning for all 3 of them, and then after one series, 2 of them tap out, and the game changes. So it stresses your adaptability, and you really got to feel the game out. We could probably be more aware of when they are in a situation like that.
That's even worse.
Yeah, that's not making it any better.
That doubles down on bad.
My God.
I hate to
That's
laugh.
even worse.
I hate to laugh. They have no shot. They have no shot.
Oh, my God.
That's like word salad. What are you exactly saying there? But it's
very tough to defend that.
I don't know. I think that this is such a difficult, it must be hard. Coaches' expertise is or are to coach, to teach, to educate their players. They're not necessarily the best public speakers. And yet it's like every week you have to stand up there and justify the job you're doing and justify the job that you're doing to a lot of lay people who maybe don't know all the intricacies, and justify the job you're doing to people who not only may not know everything or all the intricacies or have the same knowledge of your area of expertise, but also don't know everything that you're not at liberty to say. I mean, what if cornerback Z said, holy cow, Jamar Chase is so much tougher than I thought. I just can't do it. What if cornerback Y had massive stomach pains and just like couldn't run? You know, like there could be anything going on. And I think that sometimes instead of just being straightforward, they give us this word salad. And to your point, it doesn't come out looking really good.
Aditi, Garrett threw a grenade into our group chat. Bless you.
Bless you.
I've been sneezing all day. I can't believe I haven't sneezed on the air yet. I'm like trying to hold it in all morning. I'm fighting something too. Garrett threw something in our group chat the other day, and it set off a bomb of, is 3 years enough to evaluate a coach? So without any further context, I will just ask you that exact same question, not necessarily regarding Kevin, but 3 years in general, is that enough time to evaluate a head coach?
You can't answer that in a vacuum, and no, I don't think so, actually.
Bang! I knew I'd agree with you. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, I agree with
here's
that.
the point I made. Ron Rivera, 3 years to evaluate, who's been doing it for 20 years, versus Kevin, first-time head coach doing it for 3 years. It's impossible to answer.
Agreed. It's also, what is the roster that's around you? What other stressors are there? Is there a stressor like the COVID year? Is there a stressor like the whole Deshaun Watson chase and then juggling quarterbacks and preparing offenses and making a midseason switch? There's stressors like injuries or unexpected things along those lines, you know? So I think it's really hard in a vacuum to sit here and say that. I also think that, I mean, come on, Kevin Stefanski was just the coach of the year 2 years ago. What, did he just wake up yesterday and turn dumb? Like,
apparently so.
It's so
if you ask half of
ridiculous.
Cleveland, yes. Half of Cleveland thinks he just woke up and
No,
lost
I
all
mean,
his
it's
brains.
so absurd. John Harbaugh was about to be run out of town. Super Bowl winning coach was about to be run out of town when Joe Flacco's back gave out. He throws in Lamar Jackson. And when we say run out of town, he was like 4-7 or something. And I'll say this openly. If I were to play for any coach in the National Football League, it would be John Harbaugh. I just think he is so exceptional for so many reasons. And one of them is going back to last year when he only had Tyler Huntley and John Johnson and his team that also had 20 major contributors on IR is in every single game and dropping them by 1 and 2 points. I mean, to fight and to still keep fighting is a statement on the coach. So anyway, he was almost thrown out of town. Lamar Jackson comes in and all of a sudden he's coach of the year again. So things can flip, things can switch. Deshaun Watson very actively, like, look, let's just throw this out there. Deshaun Watson went to the money. The Browns were offering him guaranteed money. Yes, but Deshaun Watson also loved Kevin Stefanski's offense. And I sat with him in a room when he talked about the time that the Browns brass flew down to Houston to meet with him, to talk to him. Once the grand jury had not returned an indictment, the Browns had decided they were indeed in on this Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They'd come down to talk to him, get a personal sense of him. Everybody left the room, and it's Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson. And Kevin Stefanski has put together about a 30-minute tape of plays that Stefanski has run with Baker Mayfield, with Kirk Cousins, with Case Keenum, plays that Deshaun Watson has run, runs that Nick Chubb has run, and how they would change if Deshaun was the quarterback, what Deshaun could potentially do in a Kevin offense. And Deshaun told us that those 30 minutes right there were just everything to him. It was talking ball, as he said, which he can do forever. It was the light bulb going off in his head, this idea of what he can do in this offense, how he and Kevin could build together. And then the way that he was talking about what a great players coach Kevin is. He said Kevin has no ego. And this is something that Jacoby Brissett said also. If you don't like a play, it's out. Kevin is not wedded to anything that it has to be his way or the highway. Deshaun isn't talking about playing for a coach like that and then being okay if the coaches just can't. Let's not forget, Deshaun Watson refused to play for the Texans because the Texans didn't consult him on the hiring of a coach. You better believe that if Deshaun Watson has tied himself to a franchise, part of that decision is who the coach is. So if
point.
you put all of your eggs in the Deshaun Watson basket, You're not going to piss him off by getting rid of the coach that he wants to play for and getting rid of the offensive system that he wants to be in. And oh, by the way, there's no reason to get rid of the coach. Kevin Stefanski didn't wake up yesterday and suddenly lose everything in his head that made him coach of the year 2 years ago.
Aditi, the sun is shining.
Like, what do you think is out there that's better? Who is out there?
I agree with everything you said, although it is fair to say he hasn't done a great job this year, I think.
I mean, sure, they're 5-8. He would tell you that he hasn't done a great job. What 5-8 coach is going to tell you I've done a great job?
Aditi, the harps are playing, the sun is shining. You just gave a sermon in a minute and a half of what I've been screaming verbatim for 3 months. And nobody's listening to me. So thank you.
Oh, stop it. I've been saying it longer than you. What the hell are you doing?
So wait, are you accusing me of plagiarizing?
No, of course not. No.
By the way,
I'm just saying.
We got beef. We got Aditi versus Jason.
No. She'd kick my ass every time. No.
By the way, Aditi, last thing before we let you go, Trump just made a big announcement. Trump trading cards for $99. Will you buy them?
Oh, my God.
What?
That was
Aditi,
his
you
big
don't have to
announcement.
answer that. Thank you, Aditi. We appreciate it.
McNuggets being the lawyer.
Aditi,
You don't have to answer
we'll
that.
see you next
Will
week.
you buy the Trump trading cards?
Bye-bye.
Peace.